Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the best everyday carry guns for women. Okay, now I'm coming at this from the perspective of a full-time gun instructor that has been working full-time for about 12 years, training everybody, and I've literally trained thousands of women over that time period. We're not talking about hundreds; we're talking about thousands. Okay, so the guns that I find that most women are able to learn the fastest, shoot the best, is usually something like a Glock 43X, right, which is a little bit larger than the Glock 43. Okay, just a little bit larger, about a half inch longer here, a half inch longer there, and the Sig 365 XL. Again, a little bit bigger. Okay, now my personal preference, okay, is the Glock 43. Right, carrying Glock 43 right here. Okay, now I like the Glock 43 because it is small, compact, and I'm able to comfortably carry it. Okay, when I sit down in the car seat, it is small, doesn't hit the car seat behind me. With most women, I find that the Glock 43 is a little bit too small and too light. Because remember, the lighter the gun is, the less gun you have to grip onto, the less mass it has to pick up the recoil. So with most women, having watched them shoot, let's say a Glock 43 and a Glock 43X side by side, or Sig 365, a Sig 365 XL, they shoot the slightly larger gun better. Okay, now if I put them on a larger gun, right, like a Glock 19 or a Glock 17, they generally shoot that even better. Okay, even though for a lot of women, when I put them on the Glock 17, okay, the grip is a little bit thick, and they might have a hard time getting a proper grip on this. Okay, sometimes maybe this knuckle over here, instead of it being off to the side here, it's a little bit like this. Okay, they still hit the targets more often, and the reason is because it's a bigger gun, it's heavier, they're able to more easily control the recoil. So even though the gun is a little less comfortable in their hands, they're still able to shoot the larger gun better. The problem with this is it's too big for everyday carry. Okay, so you want to carry the largest gun that you can comfortably carry and that you realistically will carry, right? Because if the gun becomes too big, too heavy, you're just not going to want to do it. So that's where I am with the Glock 17, the Glock 19. I mean, for sure, if there was like riots going on in my neighborhood, yeah, you know what? I'd put down the Glock. I'd put down the Glock 43, and I would carry one of the bigger guns. But I live in a very low risk area. I prefer to carry the smallest gun possible. So for me, it's the Glock 43, but for most women, it's a little bit too small. Okay, even though it fits their hands the best, right? When they pick up this Glock 43 and they grip it, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is comfortable. This feels perfect." But that's not the gun that they're going to shoot the best. Some women shoot it very well, but most women, they will shoot a slightly larger gun a little bit better. Okay, so there's the answer to that. Now that we kind of got the answer out of the way, let's step back and go through some of the details of how I arrived at this point. So when I became an instructor some 12 years ago, the gun that I attempted to try and train women on initially, right, when they would come to me, a lot of times was a revolver, right? Something like this 38 Special, small light gun. And the reason why this is the gun that I started I tried to train women on is because the instructors that trained me, right, the instructors that made me an instructor, this is what they recommended. Okay, now again, mind you, most instructors are not full-time instructors, right? So even though those guys who trained me, they just, I mean, this is not something that they did full-time. Okay, and naturally, when I became an instructor, initially, of course, 12 years ago, I didn't have the experience that I had 2 years later. I didn't have the experience that I had 5 years later. And of course, at this point where I'm at now, 12 years later, I've amassed a great deal of experience. I spend a lot of time studying people, right? New shooters are a great source of information because what works good for them is going to work even better for us, okay? Especially on the stress. So I study new shooters to find out which are the best guns for them, because the best guns for them are the best guns for everybody else, right? Especially in a stressful situation. So as far as the revolvers The reason why this ended up being a terrible gun for women is because of the difficult trigger pull, right? So after I very quickly noticed that just with dry firing, when I would get women to hold the grip, extend, teach them to line up the sights, when when they would pull the trigger, this is what they would look like, right? So it was very difficult for them to pull the trigger and keep the sights on target, right? So I'm gonna aim right underneath the camera lens, so you see when I pull the trigger. See how that mostly stays all right in position. With most women, it looks something like this. Okay, so that's what they were doing with the revolver. So the issue with the revolvers is that the reason why this is tempting, right, as a choice, is because the gun is very easy to load initially, right? So you just drop in the cartridges, you close it, and you just tell people line up the sights, pull the trigger. Seems really easy. The difficulty. See, even though this is a gun that's very easy to set up, but very difficult for women to actually shoot and then reload, right? So it's easy to set up, but difficult to shoot and then to get back into operation when the gun doesn't work, because it ran out of ammunition. So first issue that women would have, like I said, was basically they would do this. A lot of these revolvers have black sights like this. So the first issue that I found with these older revolvers is women had a hard time matching up the sights, okay? And I found that I spent a lot of time just trying to teach beginners in general to line up the sights like this, right? Front sight, rear sight, get them flush underneath target. Everybody wants to see that front sight. So this is what they want to do, okay? So they're always shooting high. And in fact, with these small revolvers, the tendency that I see with beginners in general, but especially women, is when they come out, they want to be like this, okay? That's why at a lot of indoor gun ranges, I have seen women shoot out the ceilings, right? I've seen them put bullets into the ceilings because this is the tendency of that they want to see this big front sight here. They want to see it crystal clear. They want to get it up as high as possible. So it takes a lot of effort to get them to learn how to line up the sights. And that's the reason why now when I train women, I go straight to optics, okay? Straight to, basically, first I want them to just learn to hit the target, learn how to hold the gun, learn how to hit the target, learn the safety rules, learn, how to handle the gun, find the right size gun. And then the last thing I worry about is, teaching them to line up the sights. Because initially when I started doing it in reverse, I found out that I just spent way too much time trying to teach people how to line up the sights. And by the time we moved on to other things, they were kind of like brain fried. Okay, so what I use a gun like this. If you notice, there's no iron sights on this. I use this Holosun 507 ACSS. So basically, it's very easy for them. I just tell them go to the center of the circle, find the arrow, and get it on a target. Okay, so that's really easy for me to get people to understand where to aim. Where to point the gun, right? And get them to hit the targets, so I can deal first with the more difficult things of like the recoil management, trigger control, and then once they learn to shoot, I can go back and teach them how to use the iron sights, because at that point they have a point of reference. They understand how things are supposed to, they understand what the end result is supposed to look like. So then I found that a really easy way for me to train people how to use the iron sights after they've already learned to hit the target over there. What I will do is then I'll take this gun over here. I'll make it a little bit brighter. There you go. Okay, so I'll take a gun like this and I'll say, okay, find that arrow that you had before. We'll now also take a look at the front sight and the rear sight, and when you match them up properly, okay, the arrow is going to sit on top of your sights. Okay, so now I've got the benefit of the arrow. So they know that they understand that that's got to be in where that has to be. So now it's just a matter of figuring out how to line up the iron sights underneath it, and that really minimizes situations with, like I said, at a lot of these indoor ranges where women are shooting out the ceiling. Okay, so that's a that's something that's just has made my job a lot easier. Okay, I can train people a lot easier with that. Now, next thing I want to talk about is guns that have like first of all, like guns are, let's say, double action only, right? Like I got a SIG 250, double action only, or I got a Ruger LCP1. Again, double action only. Very difficult for most women to, to pull that trigger, keep the iron sights on target. Okay. So now, how about a gun like this SIG 2022, which is basically it's got a decocker, so it's a single action, double action, right? So you got your decocker over here, okay, where you decock it. And I found that this was a terrible choice to try and train women on, or generally even men, because it's just a lot more buttons you gotta get used to operating. The whole thing with the two different trigger pulls, because the trigger on this is going to be a lot more difficult when you shoot, because first shot's going to be double action, so they still got that first shot's going to be hard. So again, I'm finding that they're doing a lot of that, and then after that they got to adjust to the to the single action pull, which again, now I'm just complicating things even more, right? So now they gotta go, because what happens is they're gonna squeeze really hard for that first shot. They're gonna go like that, and then now they're expecting the same thing on the second shot, regardless of the fact that I told them it's gonna be a lighter shot, and now they do the same thing again. So it's a lot easier to train women and all people in general on a consistent trigger pull. Okay, so that's why I just use guns that have a consistent trigger pull, and that can be something like your Glocks, your SIGs, like your SIG 320s, that type of series, or your M&P, I think 2.0, same thing, the striker fire guns. Okay, so that's why I quickly got away from revolvers. I quickly got away from double action only guns. I quickly got away from single action, double action guns. It just made the training so much more easier if I was just working with a striker fire gun that had a consistent trigger pull. Okay? Now, one of the things I had to quickly overcome was the safety issues, because again, a lot of times before women or people in general come to me, they've heard of this idea, this concept of the safety on the gun, and they expect that the gun has safety. And what I have to explain to them is, with the striker fire gun, the holster is the safety mechanism. Okay, so the holster basically, it doesn't just carry the gun, but it also retains it, and it also protects the trigger guard. And so this is the safety mechanism. I explained that when I go home, I do not take the loaded gun out of the holster. When I go home, what I do is I loosen up my belt. The whole gun comes off the holster like this. The holster with the gun comes off the belt like this, and this entire thing goes into the safe like this. Okay, loaded with around the chamber, right? Because the last thing I want to be doing at night, right, when it's dark in the house and my kids are sleeping, I can't see that well. The last thing I want to be doing is trying to take the gun out of the holster, because now I'm defeating the safety mechanism. And trying to unload the gun in the dark. Okay, why take that risk? Just take the whole gun off my belt, put the whole thing in the safe. The next morning, the whole thing like this goes back on my belt. Now, if I need to use the bathroom, or I need to drop my pants, same deal. I use a gun that's small enough, with a holster that's small enough, that I can basically just tuck this in my pocket. Now I can drop my pants and not worry about the gun hitting the floor. Okay, so this is a really nice little package. Okay, and the gun and the holster go together. This is a single unit. They go together. So the holster is the safety mechanism of the gun. All right, so that's an important thing that has to be made very clearly, and also that's the only way to safely carry the gun. Now, it has to be a hard Kydex holster like this. It cannot be a fabric one, cannot be leather or something that's going to collapse and accidentally hit that trigger. It has to be a Kydex form-fitted holster specifically made for that gun. So you can't just go to Walmart and get one of those soft holsters. Those holsters were not designed for striker fire guns. Okay, so that's another important thing that has to be put out there. Now, at this point, I just briefly mention that because this is not a concealed carry class, right? But I am giving them, because ultimately they're trying to figure out which is going to be the best gun for them to buy, so that they can carry for everyday carry. So I have to briefly mention that aspect of the holster, it being the safety mechanism, and you need a holster that that will fit in your pants, in your pocket, for when you'll go to the bathroom. So I kind of have to put it out there, but I generally don't over focus on that because we're still trying to figure out which is the best gun for the women, okay, for these women that I'm working with. So revolver is usually the bad choice, and most women that show up with a revolver, after I have them shoot the other guns, they're like, you know, they basically they want to sell this and go buy a different gun. So this is a bad choice for women. Guns with too many buttons, decockers, bad choice for women. You want to buy a gun that is optic ready, right? So that you want to buy a gun that is already set up, that already has the cut here that will take the optic. And the reason is because, you know, basically any gun that does not, will not accept an optic, in my opinion, at this point, is an antique, okay? I have found that everybody shoots guns with optics better, okay? Everybody. Now, there's a few people that I sometimes, occasionally I'll get somebody that's like, oh, I've been shooting iron sights all my life. And, you know, and that they shoot the iron sights a lot better. Now, when I put them on guns like this one here, right, that have the hollow sun ACSS, because a lot of times with the irons, with the optics, they're just working with a dot only. But when I give them a gun that has that big circle to guide them to the center, they're able to find this a lot faster, right? So when people say that they don't like optics or they don't shoot optics well, it's because they in the past they have used dot only optics, right? Not the ones that have something to find that help guide you to the center. Okay, so that's a big consideration. With the Glock 43, for in the past that wasn't an option. This just became an option this year in 2023. So this is the 507K ACSS, right? I did a separate review on this, so you see how it's got the circle with the dot in the center. Okay, so this is the type of optic that you want. You know, yes, you want the iron sights as a backup, but you know, but basically you will always shoot your guns with optics better. Now, occasionally, like I said, occasionally I will get somebody that insists that they will shoot the iron sights better. I'll put them on my guns over here, and in fact, they'll see that they shoot my guns better. And within that group, occasionally I'll have somebody that still doesn't shoot, but I think that there's just like a mental block there where they're just like refusing to, you know, to try something new. So, right? So that's fine. I'm not going to try and force, you know, if they've been shooting iron sights all their life and they're good at it at this point, that's fine. Let them do that. But those people that when they come here with their wives, right, when I meet them at the range and they got their wife, the wives always shoot the guns with the optics better, and they usually outshoot the husbands, right? And that's kind of how, a lot of times, that's how I get through to a lot of these iron sight only guys, when, you know, they're shooting their guns with the iron sights, and then I put their women, you know, I put the ladies that they come with on my guns that have the optics, and by the time the women are done, they're out shooting their husbands, and then that kind of forces them to take a pause, and then they'll start saying, oh, my eyes aren't that good today, and the usual, you know, I'm normally a lot better. I think it's, you know, the wind conditions and, you know, so whatever. But anyway, that's how, you know, I think a lot of times those people go home after they get a chance to think about it. They you know, they start to accept that the optics are going to make everybody better. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about, let's talk about really quickly about the difference between home defense versus everyday carry. For home defense, okay, there's only one answer, okay, an AR-15, an AR style gun. The many benefits to this, among them that the gun is longer so that you can spread your arms out a little bit more. And basically I tell people, take your fist and put that underneath the target, right? So if I put this underneath the target, right, my optic is going to end up on the gun. So just by pointing this underneath the target, right, throwing this underneath the target, I'm on target. So there's a big advantage to your arms being further apart. You got a better sense of where the gun is pointed. Okay, so you know, you just point wherever you point. That's where your muzzle's going to go. With as opposed to the handguns, where, you know, with all handguns, a lot of times I see this because people don't have a sense of where the gun is pointed. It takes a lot more training to teach people to point straight out. And what I'll tell them is, stick your finger out, take your finger and point it at the target. So this does two things. Number one, obviously you teach them to keep the gun in safe direction wherever that happens to be. But this reinforces this idea of keeping your finger off the trigger until you're on target. Because if I tell people take this straight finger and first point it at your target, right, that's going to ensure that the finger stays off the trigger, right? Because you got to understand with these new people, they've been training their whole lives to put the finger on the trigger. Every time these ladies pick up the hairdryer, their finger goes on the trigger. So this looks like a hairdryer, okay? So anything that looks like a hairdryer, they're gonna treat like a hairdryer. Anything that looks like a drill, if you're using drills and stuff like that, anything that looks like a drill, you're gonna pick it up and you're gonna put your finger on it. So that's why when I pick up a drill, my finger's straight, right? To me, anything that looks like a gun is a gun, right? So what I'll teach people is take this finger and point it straight out at your target. And that's what's gonna ensure that the gun doesn't go up or down like this. Point it straight out to the target, right? Aim, find your dot, put it on the target, then put your finger on the trigger. Okay, so I'm doing two things with that. Teaching them to keep the finger off the trigger until they're on the target. But I'm also using the finger to point to the target, right? So if I'm pointing at the camera, I'm pointing that finger to the camera, right? So that's ensuring, right? Take this finger, point it to the camera, something you've been doing your whole life, right? You've been pointing your whole life. Take that finger, point it to the camera, or whoever you want to point, okay? And that's what's going to keep the gun from going up or down like that. So that's how I deal with that issue of women always wanting to do this or that, okay? Again, I know what mistakes people are going to make before they make them, because I've been looking at them for 12 years, right? I've seen every possible mistake that can possibly be made, okay? With regards to home defense versus everyday carry, you want an AR style gun. This is the gun that women shoot the best. Okay, so I always start women off on an AR gun. Now this one shoots 9mm, and the reason why I use a 9mm AR is because I'm able to use the same magazine, the same ammunition on these guns versus these guns over here. So that's the reason why I'll use a 9mm AR, not because it's lighter recoil. This actually has more recoil than a 5.56, because this has a heavier bullet. It's a straight blowback, so there's no rotating bolt to cushion the recoil. So the recoil on this is actually just a tiny bit more than a 5.56 AR, but it doesn't matter. It's tiny. It's still very manageable, and women have absolutely no problem shooting this. So I'll put them on this gun. Initially, I'll get them shooting targets. A lot of times I'll get them shooting targets all the way out to 50, 75 yards standing, all right? On their first day shooting, I'll have women shooting targets out at 75 yards with this gun. And now it's easy for me to say, hey, what you did here with this gun, the way you took that, the way you got that dot, put it on your target, and then you gently press the trigger, that's exactly what you're gonna do with the pistol. And again, the key there is that when you press the trigger, don't move the dot off the target. And the explanation that I'll say is that when the gun goes bang, the bullet is still traveling out the barrel. So gun goes bang, the bullet's still coming out the barrel. The bullet doesn't immediately leave the barrel. And that's a way for me to get women and new shooters in general to follow through, right? To keep aiming, boom, after the gun goes bang, keep the dot on the target, watch it get hit through the optic, okay? Both eyes open. I use these nice big Holosun 510Cs. Big window over here, looks like a television. They're very comfortable with that. This is gonna make them a lot more comfortable with shooting with both eyes open. All right, and then, because when you shoot with both eyes open, the hood over here is gonna disappear, okay? Because, so you're gonna be able to, all you're gonna see is your target with big circle and a dot on it, okay? So first I'll train them on this. I'll get them very comfortable shooting the target, and then I'll put them usually on a Glock 17 or a Glock 19. Basically I'll teach them to hold the gun as high as possible, right? This is the weakest point in the grip over here, trying to get this meaty part to basically plug that hole. Now most women, the thumb isn't long enough to reach the frame up here, so they'll have to tuck it down over here. That's fine. So however they have to do it, extend fully, okay, in the center of that circle. Remember, again, we're using this Holosun 507 ACSS, right? So basically I tell them, go find in the center of that big green circle is an arrow, find that, get it on target. And then what I'll tell them is pick up the slack on the trigger, gently, find the wall, gently break it. And the way I'll say it's kind of like the brake of your car. When you press your brakes, your brakes don't catch immediately. Your foot has to travel a little bit before your brake catches. So same deal here, right? Finger's gonna travel a little bit, right? It's gonna find the wall, then gently brake it without moving the arrow off the target. Pick up the slack, find the wall, gently brake it, okay? So I'll get them comfortable on either a Glock 17 or a Glock 19, okay? And then at that point, I'll usually go down to a Glock 43, okay? A lot of women will shoot it. Sometimes I have to come up to like a 43X, but that's where most women usually end up. They usually will, as far as an everyday carry gun. Now, they will admit, right? First of all, I will ask them, which gun did you shoot the best? And they will tell me they shot the rifle the best. And I can say, great. That's your primary home defense gun, right? This is your main home defense gun. Okay. The pistol is your backup gun, okay? So if your rifle stops working for any reason, right? Boom, boom, boom. Oh crap, the gun stops working. Then you go to your pistol. So the pistol is the backup gun to your rifle in the home defense situation. Now, outside of the home, the rifle is a little bit too big and awkward to carry around. So we need to carry something a little bit smaller and more compact. And the purpose of this, okay, is to get you home to your rifle, okay? So that's the purpose of the everyday carry gun. Now, of course, you may have to fight your way to your house, but that's the purpose of the pistol. The pistol gets you home to your rifle, okay? So, and I will ask them which gun you shoot the best. They'll tell me the rifle. And then among the pistols, which pistol did you like the best? It'll usually be the 17th or the 19th. And I'll say, great, yeah. And then I'll explain the reason is because the gun's a bit heavier and its mass picks up the recoil versus the smaller, lighter gun. However, this is the gun that, a gun this size is a lot more compact and convenient to carry. So what that brings us to is that this gun requires a lot more training, a lot more of a commitment to practicing and to getting additional training. Now, one of the things that I will do is when I meet women at a range, I don't want to overwhelm them with too much information. All right, so a lot of times it's, I'm not going to go through all this blah 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 that I gave you guys. Basically, I'll have them shoot the rifle first. I'll have them shoot one of the larger frame Glocks. Then I'll put them on the Glock 43. Again, focusing on hitting the targets, getting hits, gripping the gun correctly and getting hits on target, okay? And then we can go back and fill in a lot of the blanks as to which is going to be the best gun for their situation. So that's how I generally address. So as far as which is the best gun for women, I mean, there are exceptions because there's some women that say, hey, I really feel a lot more comfortable with the Glock 19 and I'll deal with the inconvenience of carrying it. Or some women that will say, hey, I really prefer the 43 because it's smaller. So even though the 43X a little bit bigger, a little bit more easy for me to shoot, I still need a smaller gun. That's fine. But at that point, I will, explain to them that they have to be willing to commit, to putting in regular practice with the smaller guns, because with the larger ARs, once they learn the basic operation of that, how to load it, work the safety, I mean, they can go months without shooting an AR, right? So this gun is so easy to operate with all the preparations done in advance, right? You load the gun, you put the magazine in, chamber round, put your safety on. With this gun, when you go to your safe, all you gotta do, right, is kickstart the safety off. The gun's already loaded around the chamber. All you gotta do is kickstart the safety off, and the gun is ready to work. Okay, and because it's a larger gun, hands are further apart, a lot easier to get on target. So what I find that women and new shooters in general, they can get like 1 or 2 lessons with this, and then basically they're, months later, I'll see them months later, and they still are able to shoot this gun very well, very competently. Okay. However, with the pistols, right, especially with the small ones, if I find that if they don't commit to a regular, for at least for the first month, I would recommend like weekly training, and after that, monthly training, because the muscle memory that's involved with training on these guns, you just need a lot of it. Okay, and this is not something that you can just like bang out like in 2 days. Say, hey, I'm just going to do 2 days of training, do like 16 hours straight, and that's not how it works. Okay, which is part of the reason why I don't like doing long classes. I like doing lots of, I like setting people up for numerous like 1 hour sessions, because it takes a lot of training sessions to basically develop that muscle memory. I find that people learn a lot better than if you try to like just put them through a 2-day class. Yeah, by the end of the second day, they'll be doing a lot of stuff really good. But if I see them a month later, they've forgotten a lot of stuff. However, if I do a lot of frequent like 1 hour sessions, right? So if I train people just for an hour and do that for, for 4 weeks straight, or 5 weeks straight, or 6 weeks straight, after 6 weeks of just doing 1 hour sessions, I find that they actually retain the information a lot better. So that's, again, this is all based on my experience of studying new shooters and seeing, what they learn the fastest, how they retain information the best. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. A lot of information I put out there. And again, this is the best gun, the best everyday carry gun for women. And what I have found, it generally tends to be a Glock 43 or Glock 43X or SIG 365 XL, which are just a little bit bigger than the smallest choice. Okay, I like carrying the smallest guns. This is what I carry, but I get to practice every day, so I'm really good with really small guns. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you all soon.